Hi, Achim here from InnerSpace Explorers. Today, as the title indicates, we talk about rebreathers and how to clean and disinfect them. And before I get into this, if you like my content, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you do so, please hit the little notification bell so you get information when I upload new content, which is normally once a week, sometimes every 2 weeks. So, to the topic. I received quite a few messages how to clean and disinfect rebreathers. In fact, I think I did this video before, probably not in depth. And so let's talk about it again. And it's a bit different because people ask me about time intervals, and I got a lot of questions about second-hand rebreathers. So as you know, I'm a big fan of the classic KISS. It's not manufactured anymore. Question is if KISS is manufacturing anything anymore. And so a lot of people that want to get into KISS diving buy second-hand units. Classic KISS are available quite frequently on the second-hand market, and they come in very different conditions, from almost new, like have been in the water a week ago, to stuff that has been stored somewhere for years. And so obviously a lot of these units end up on my table like, can you make this diveable again? Which generally is not a problem, but there is things you can simply not clean and not make good again. So talking about cleaning and disinfection of rebreathers, we always have to see there's two categories. There's stuff that is in the breathing loop and that is in contact with our salvia. And there's things that are not, like the scrubber canister, for example. Yeah, of course, we breathe through the canister, but the prime issue there is the residue of the lime. And yeah, that's and it's a rough material, so I don't have one sitting here at the moment, but usually it's a plastic container, so you can scrub it, and that's an important thing that we will talk about in a minute. And there's not much damage that you can do unless you use some weird chemicals or whatever, which you shouldn't do. So you can mechanically clean it. So the more interesting part is hoses, mouthpieces, counterlungs. And I have a couple of examples sitting here, which I'll show you in a minute. So generally speaking, and it was funny because that actually was the email that triggered me to do this video. Somebody said he bought a second-hand unit, and there were these Cooper hoses on it, which he liked a lot, but he wrote literally, there's a lot of gunk on the inside, how do I get this out? You don't, throw them away. So these things at some point are beyond repair, beyond cleaning, and the question is always, I mean, how did this build up there? What has been done to these things in the past? So if there's gunk, whatever that means, in them, that's it, throw it away, right? The same funny question I received recently was how to glue a mouthpiece. You don't glue a mouthpiece, you get a new one, put it on this. No, I mean, mouthpiece, we talk about this way, we not talk about the entire BOV or DSV, we talk about the mouthpiece. Opposite, right? And even on like, this is from a Draeger military rebreather from a LAR 5. I mean, even if this one breaks, you need to replace it. I mean, even if this might be hard because it's hard to get or whatever, you cannot glue that. That's nonsense. I mean, if it's a real rubber one, theoretically rubber can be vulcanized, and if you don't get a substitute and it's about this one dive or whatever, you can probably think about it, but in generally, that's not something you do. So when you buy, let's say, a second-hand rebreather and you want to put it back into action, and you obviously don't know who used it before and it's not sanitized, etc., then you obviously want to give it a good clean. And as I said before, I mean, hard parts like the shell, the scrubber canister, stuff like that, you can give a proper rinse, you can clean it out with a brush. And basically that should be it. So if you would need some hard tools, like to scrape off the whatever residue with a screwdriver or something, then it's probably beyond repair. I can remember a classic kiss that I got a couple of years ago that a friend of mine bought, and that had been sitting for 7 years in a closed box, and it was used in salt water before, and it was not cleaned or emptied. Person literally took it like that, put it in the box, closed the box, and 7 years later we received it. There were actually quite a few things that we had to replace. End of story. So I mean, hoses, counterlungs, etc. But even the hard parts, I actually can remember that the scrubber canister, the lime was actually a solid block. So actually I kind of used a hammer and a chisel to loosen it up and then pour it out, and then I threw the entire thing in a big ultrasonic cleaner that I have in my workshop. And it took quite a while and some extensive also mechanical cleaning to get this to a certain condition, and in the end we threw it away because it then had a really rough surface, and every time you used it there was more residue in this not even surface anymore. So it was just at a point where we were like, okay, that doesn't make any sense anymore. And I completely understand. So you get your rebreather and you get a hose, and the hose basically looks okay, but you're breathing from it, you don't know who used it, you not totally trust the sanitizing thing because you cannot really see into it. And then I always get the question, can I not use a brush or anything to go through these hoses? So yeah, you can. So this is an old one, so that's just for demonstration purpose. Actually, I don't know if you can see that, but this is actually pretty brittle on the outside, so nothing I would use again. And this is basically like a bottle brush, and it's not very hard, very stiff, so it doesn't hurt your hands. Now, that's actually a rule of thumb that I can give you. If you look for a brush like that and you touch it like this and it's not it's uncomfortable for your hands, it's like you touch a bunch of needles, then it's too hard. So this is no problem to take with my hands like that. What you do not want to do is you don't want to get into these hoses like this and then pull it out. You can actually feel that this is hard because the brush goes like this, and then when you pull it back, these little needles basically have to fold into the other direction. So if this is relatively rough, this is military grade hose. So but if you take the rubber hoses that we usually have like on the Kiss or something like that, that are used from most manufacturers, these black rubber things, I always have the feeling that you roughen up the surface on the inside. So that's not what you want to do, because if that surface is somehow damaged, there's more room for bacteria and small particles to settle down there and create issues in the future. So if you really want to do that, what you do is you take this long handle of the brush and feed it in the hose, till it comes out on the other side, and then you basically pull it through. So if there's anything in there, if you're afraid of that spider or whatever, I saw a super funny video recently of a spider in a regulator, then that's something you can do. But yeah, just wanted, because this comes up frequently, just wanted to show you how to do this. In my opinion, if somebody has a different experience or knows better, just put it in the comment section. But that's the way I would clean a hose like that, or sometimes clean a hose like that if I'm like, oh, yeah, let's see or make sure there's nothing in there. But generally, like, it feels good. And if in doubt, not bail out, but replace it, right? So as like underwater, if in doubt, bail out. If in doubt, if this is cleanable or if it's still good, throw it away, buy a new one. All right. So then a lot of people talk about the DSV and the BOV. So this is again from the Draeger R5. This is a very simple mechanical thing. So actually the good thing here is you can visually control everything. You can look inside, you see, okay, this is clean, this is nice. So that's not a problem. And of course, I mean, you can also disassemble it, but that's a different story. And probably if you're not a mechanical person and you do not want to service your stuff yourself, or you cannot service your stuff yourself, you just want to clean it, then this is still easy doable. So if you feel like, I mean, you can take a small toothbrush or whatever and go inside there. And so if you're into fish keeping, there's actually tons of small brushes and stuff for cleaning filters that you can buy relatively cheap. And they also work great for stuff like that. So that's not a problem. If you need it, again, if we talk about sanitizing your rebreather because you want to store it for a couple of weeks or months, or you get it back into service, something like that, sanitizing is one thing. We talk about cleaning. So, and usually your rebreather, if you rinse it after diving, you sanitize it from time to time, you store it correctly, etc., it shouldn't need any cleaning. I mean, you kind of clean it after the dive when you rinse it. So I really want to be sure that we talk about the same things here. I'm talking about a rebreather that needs cleaning for whatever reason. Usually for me, it's a second-hand unit that I get, or a customer that brings one in that he got somewhere, or it wasn't in service for a couple of years and was stored in an open box in the basement. Some stuff like that, right? So that's an easy one. Now, when you look at this, for example, you have the mushroom valves, which you can obviously take out. You can remove this one. And of course, you can open up the second stage, but and then have a good look inside here and see all of this. So there is still visual control, but it's probably a bit harder to properly clean. So if you have the feeling this needs cleaning, I would heavily recommend to give it to a service technician that is also able to service your second stages and first stages from your regulators, and ask him to do that, because the best thing to clean these things is actually an ultrasonic cleaner. And if you don't have one, a good one at home, then that's actually the best way to go. And also taking these in and out a lot of times is sometimes not the best idea, because you can really damage them. So there's actually sit on a carrier. I don't know if you see that. So you could take a pair of pliers and pull these out here, or with a hook. But then you still have to remove these from the carrier, and usually they don't survive that. There's a small pin on the other side, which you can actually see. I don't know if you can see that here. There's the small pin here. So because it's a directional valve, so if you take this carrier out and you then take the valve itself, it's actually, I don't know if you can see that here, then you pull this one through that little hole, and sometimes these rip off. So it's actually also something that you do not clean. I mean, if these mushroom valves are gone, you need to replace them. Just also because it's one of the most critical parts in a rebreather. If these fail, you do not breathe in a cycle anymore, but you breathe back in 4, and so you cannot properly absorb CO2 anymore. And so yeah, again, something you don't want to clean, so they need to be replaced. So, but this is, let's say, a little bit more complicated because you don't have real great visual access to everything. So you may want to use a professional, and in that case, somebody that has access to an ultrasonic cleaner. So one little addition to the ultrasonic cleaner: if you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner and you have this one part that you want to clean out, not disinfect, sanitize, what a good idea is these little tablets that, yeah, if I would know how these are called in English. In Germany it's Correga-Tabs, which is the brand, but it's for like third teeth. So if you have artificial teeth and you want to clean them overnight, you put them in a glass of water, you put this tablet in, and it starts to bubble and foam, and clean it off and sanitize it. So these are actually great to remove dirt from something that you do not want to hit with a brush or something like that. And that can be a good idea, and they actually don't do any harm. So that's the most important thing. There's no poisoning, whatever. I mean, you should not take these in the mouth, obviously. But if you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner and you have this one part, like this mouthpiece, DSV or whatever, and you're like, put it in a glass of water, put 2 or 3 of these tablets in, fill it up with water, let it sit for a couple of hours. That's awesome. So a good example, you have a teacup, for example. You always have this thermo teacup with me. And I drink a lot of black tea. So after a couple of weeks, just having it in the dishwasher, you see still that the inside turns dark from this from the tea. I think it's the same with coffee. So you put one of these tablets in, fill it with water, let it sit overnight. It looks like brand new. So it's cool stuff. And a lot of people actually use that in technical cleaning purposes. So I also use them in the workshop frequently for certain things. And if I don't want to start up the big ultrasonic cleaning or something like that for a small part. So that just as an addition. I'll see if I find a proper link that I can put in the description. And that's something I can recommend that you check out. Counterlungs. So this is one from the classic kit with KISS, which you probably know is basically an MSR drinking bag. So it's the same thing. You can't look inside. If you sanitize it, you sanitize it. If you have the feeling there is something not good in these things, throw them away. Like can't remember when I bought the last one, but I think something like below $50, so 35, something like that. So I always have 2 new spare ones with me just in case. That's one of the beauties of this rebreather. Easy to replace these parts, not expensive, nothing special. And yeah, if in doubt, throw them away. So if you have something that is specific for the rebreather that you cannot just throw away and replace, so that's my second example again, that's the LA5. So this is a special counterlung that goes for this rebreather. And in this particular case, you cannot replace it. Finding one of these new is basically impossible. Finding one second hand is a miracle. So you have to deal with what you have. And cleaning these, yeah, obviously you cannot take a brush or anything and start fumbling around there. So you have to rely on basically sanitizing them, rinsing them out. I recently had a discussion with somebody because I'm a big fan of dishwasher. Because I always say, well, if dishwasher, I mean you clean your dishes, you eat from these dishes. So if it's flushed out properly, it's actually not something that should create a problem. And compared to the sanitizer, which is basically just killing bacteria, the dishwasher also loosens up dirt and debris or whatever sits on the surface to a certain extent. And so that can be an option, but you need to be 100% sure that you really, really rinse this out completely. I mean, if there's a little bit of residue somewhere and you like afterwards, because most of these have some sort of flavor, your breathing air smells a little bit like lemon, that's not good. Also, it might be better than what it tastes otherwise. You don't know how this residue that you obviously taste or smell reacts under pressure. So you really need to make sure to rinse this out. And again, this is not a recommendation that I sometimes do. If you remember the last video about cleaning these vintage regulators, I said sometimes small parts I put in the dishwasher, which works excellent. But that's a metal part or a plastic part that you can inspect, that you can wipe off, rinse off, brush off, whatever. So that's a different thing than in this bag, because you cannot really inspect them. So another great tool to inspect these things is an endoscope. And easy for me, I have one in the workshop because I use it to check out engines and stuff where I have to look inside without opening them up. But there's actually relatively cheap ones available. So if you look online, Amazon, eBay, whatever, you find them for less than 100 euros. And there's even cheaper ones that you can use with your cell phone, but the picture quality is not the best. But the one that I have is a little camera, a couple of LED lights, and the camera is like 5 millimeters in diameter. So you can really easily go in there and look around and do a proper inspection. That's actually an item that I recommend or at least introduce in all my rebreather classes, because I think it's a great way to inspect areas in the rebreather that you cannot visually access. And then you will actually see if there's some mold or any other nasty things in your counterlungs, and you can make an educated decision if you need to clean them out or if it's enough to sanitize them. So sanitizing these things, I said it before, definitely nothing that you would do after every dive. So I sanitize my rebreathers whenever somebody else is gonna use them, like I give one away for a course or something, or for tryout, and obviously after this person used it before I use it again. So that is simply to protect the other person and myself. You never know, this person can have some weird bacteria or whatever in the lungs, and you don't want to breathe basically from that bag that that person was breathing from. And if you ever give your rebreather to somebody who's smoking, you definitely want to do that. That was probably the nastiest thing I ever had. I had a friend of mine that was a heavy smoker, and I, stupid me, allowed him to do a test dive in a pool with an oxygen rebreather of mine. And afterwards, every internal surface of the rebreather had this yellowish, nasty layer. Really, really terrible. So don't do that. So what I do with my rebreathers after dive, I obviously rinse them in fresh water, hang them up so they can dry out, and then I store them in a proper closed container that is not airtight, because you want basically air to flow through. If you ever saw an old Traeger rebreather like the FGT, they were actually stored in baskets, which probably was an awesome idea, because there's airflow going through there. You don't want them in an airtight container, because that's actually, if they're not completely dry and it's a little bit temperature, then you can actually have mold building up there. That's the last thing you want. And then, yeah, sanitizing, I mean, at least once a year. I sanitize mine usually every 6 months. The ones that nobody else is diving, just me, like every 6 months or so. You probably saw that in the other video, which I will link in the description. So if you're in the US, you probably use the Steramine tablets. That's the most used sanitizer for rebreathers. So these are tablets. I can actually show you these little tablets. You can crush these in water. I think it's 1 tablet per gallon or something like that. You can actually also use 2. It's not that you can really overdose it. And then you soak the stuff for like 15 minutes or so. Make sure that every surface is covered. And then you take it out. Don't rinse it off, important one, and just let it air dry, and then it's fine. Important thing is, in Europe, this stuff is not available, at least to my knowledge. I never found, no drugstore, no pharmacy was ever able to get that to me. And the companies in the US that sell it, also Amazon, they don't ship to Europe for whatever reason. There must be some legal thing, I don't know, whatever. But it's not available in Europe. If you have a source, if you watch this video and have a source in Europe for Steramine tablets, put it in the comment section or send me a message. That would be super interesting, because I never managed to get them here. I always get mine from the US, basically buying them there and bringing them, or I have somebody who's over there buying and bringing me some. So in Europe, what we use, most of what I also use, is Virkon S, which is powder. Yeah, you see, and it's the same procedure. Yeah, you make a solution based on what's written there, and then soak the stuff in there, and then take it out, let it dry off, and you're good to go. So yeah, as I said, 6 months or at least once a year. Usually my rebreathers get used by other people in between, so my interval is more often. But that's normally what I do. And the other stuff like my scrubber canister, etc., I mean, you empty it out, you rinse it with fresh water, so I don't have the buildup of anything that really needs to be cleaned. And then it's more about storage, what I said before. I sometimes see people having their rebreather stuff somewhere open. I mean, if it's sitting in your living room, that's fine. But if it's like in the basement where, I mean, there's a possibility of spiders, cockroaches, whatever, not a smart idea. And I mentioned this video before of that spider in the regulator. You need to Google it. I don't know where I found it, but either it was on Instagram or I found it on YouTube. But Google it, spider scuba regulator. The nastiest thing you've seen ever. I mean, I hate spiders, so not for me. And I had one sitting in the Philippines in the rebreather hose. So whenever you use your rebreather, and that's it doesn't matter where in the world, the first thing I always do is check the rebreather if there's not some body with 8 legs sitting in there, because that's not what you want to inhale. Same goes, I mean, especially tropical climates like cockroaches, etc. If there's, I mean, you dive the stuff in, you clean it out in the evening, you hang it somewhere for dry, you dive in the morning, there's a good chance there's some critter in there. And also in the counterlungs. So I mean, the hoses is easy to check. The counterlung is not. I mean, very unlikely that this super big spider crawls all the way through the rebreather and through the mushroom valve into your mouth. But anyway, you don't want it in your breathing loop, right? So there we again talk about that. And don't think that because you fill this thing with water and flush it out, that these usually go out. Like this one, for example, I mean, it's probably not, yeah, you can actually see it. There's like a spring in there to prevent it from total collapse, etc. It's not necessarily effective to get these critters out. So endoscope, I can tell you, that's probably not such a bad idea. And so sorry if I if I started some fear here, but I had bad experiences with that. So yeah, I hope that shines a little bit of light on this topic. If you have questions, comments, recommendations, stuff you do different, let me know in the comment section. I'm always super curious to hear what you guys do and what experiences you have. Also, some crazy stories about spiders and cockroaches and rebreathers are always welcome. And yeah, take care. And in 2 weeks, I'll come back to you from somewhere else, and there will be some very cool announcements. So stay tuned, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.